and welcome to the premiere episode of Black Money Matters. I'm Dr. Karen Weaver, and I am excited to be here with my co-host, Jamaica Patrick.
Hello.
How are you, Jamaica?
I am just as excited as you are to get this show going and talk about these Black Money Matters.
Right, and we've been talking about Black Money Matters a lot. We really have. And with everything that's been going on, it's a hot topic. It's an important topic, and it's really one that we should have been talking about for a while now. We've had the spotlight on us around criminal justice and necks being on our knees that way. But we have to expand that scope because it's been on our necks when you look at economic empowerment and economic access and opportunity. And I think that's why a show like this is so important. And it's something we've been talking about. We really have about Black Money Matters and why it matters.
I agree. But before we get started,
Yes.
I just want to say that being here alongside you is such an honor. When I first met you, it was in my role at City Hall, working
We've
under
been through
you.
some things.
We have.
Yes.
And you know what I discovered, that in addition to being a great mayor and leader to this city, you have a story, a lot of history, with you and your family, and just learning about, every time I talk to you and you would tell me things, I would learn more and more, and that, I feel like that really makes you an expert to talk about Black money because, your family has really attributed to the economic viability of the Black community. And, I think that that's great. And I just wanted to say that it's an honor to even be in this role working alongside
thank you. I'm glad to have you here with me. I mean, Chief Recovery Officer, I really am. And that was something really that was instilled in me, is taking care of home. And buying local was always very important because I remember my dad saying, if you can't take care of your home and take care of home, who do you take care of?
Absolutely.
And that's how things get bigger and better. And so I think that was the conversation you and I were having about Black money and why we're here today. Why we're here today, because and I've got some notes. I've got some notes because there's so much that I want to make sure that we say. Because one of the things you hear is, what are you talking about? And what is it that you want when you're talking about, equity and empowerment and Black money matters? What is it? And really, it's what everybody else wants.
Right.
It's what everybody else wants. And I want to talk about that some, but I think it's important to really lay a foundation when you talk about where did we come from, where we are now, and where is it we want to go. And when we talk about where is it we want to go, that's when we'll talk about what it is we want.
Absolutely.
And it really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody what it is that we want. But I know we wanted to talk about some history a little bit because we were talking about what we had, and I remember you said, you know what, I want to say something about Greenwood. I want to say something about, and then you said Seneca Park. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit because you did. You had some information about that, and sometimes we don't know our history and what we had that was taken.
Right. So we started talking about things like Seneca Village. And so when we go to places like New York City and we go to Central Park, that's this big park, and people, they're walking and they have their children out there, and they have, bird watching, we recently heard about. But, right.
Yeah.
And we celebrate Central Park as a park. But what people don't know is that prior to Central Park, there was a village in that location that was occupied by Black people, and it was called Seneca Village.
Yeah, I didn't know.
See, and a lot of people don't because we're not always taught all of that type of history. And so in Seneca Village, it started around 1825, and about 1855, they had about 254 residents. And they had, homes, and they had businesses, and they had all of these things, and the government decided that was a prime location for a park, the park that we now know as Central Park. And so people were evicted, some of them were given, a little bit of money, but it was arbitrary.
Right.
They were really, the goal was to get those people out of Central Park. And the sad part about it is even the newspapers touted it as like the removal of insects. That's how people were treated. people who
and
were
referred to.
to, and they were economically thriving in their land, and they were moved out because the agenda was not about black empowerment and black money. And then
and I'm not interrupt. Well, maybe I am, but it just made me think about something. But I'll let you go on because it reminds me of something similar that happened right here in Flint too.
And Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street is a
Right.
popular one,
Right.
as far as people know and understand. But like you said, Black Wall Street wasn't the only place. We could talk about right here in Flint.
We can talk about right here in Flint.
You
because
know.
something very similar when you talk about Seneca Park happened right here in Flint because we had the St. John Street area. And you hear about it all the time. You hear about it all the time. And you hear about the St. John Street reunion. And I'll tell you, if Pastor Threlkill was here, he'd just mic himself up and start talking because he likes to talk about the history. And it was funny.
Important.
It's important, and we need to understand it. I was talking with him actually just last week. Yeah, last week. And we were talking about St. John Street. And, he was giving me history about the south side and the north side and an area called Elms Park. And he talked about all of these areas where blacks were and how we lived by the tracks, but it was because the foundry was there at first. And then Buick came. Now, I know my grandparents came, my grandfather came to work at Buick. And he came in, they were pregnant with my mother, so it was 1922 when she was born. And that was it, Buick. And he was talking about all of the businesses that were in that area and the homes that were in that area, and it was a thriving area. And he talked about, Green's Home for Funeral, Chicken Shack that was there. He talked about Pet Drugstore, and I know that's why you're smiling because, and I'll come back to that, but he talked about Friley Pawn Shop and Red Dog and the Columbia Theater and the Richard Theater and Chitlin King and all of these places. There was a meat store that was there, and of course there was, beauty shops and barber shops and shoe shine shops and clubs. There were clubs there. He said there was something called the Royal Garden Club, and he talked about the record stores and places of entertainment as well. There was gambling going on. There was the Unique Social Club, but and I know we smiled because I was reading something about my dad, and he was a pharmacist before he became a pediatrician, and he worked at Pabst drugstore. And I said, wow, we just had this conversation. It was over on St. John Street. So much but he talked about all of the such a thriving area for blacks. And what happened? 475 came along. Right. And at first he was telling me, 475 was supposed to go a slightly different way, but because of money,
not black money.
Exactly. It went through the neighborhood and through the business area. And so while we were given money for it, when you look at what was taken, it was crumbs. It was crumbs, and it busted up a neighborhood, it busted up a community, it broke businesses. And that's a problem, but that's what always happens, and it's called, urban revitalization. But who does it revitalize?
Not us.
Right. Who does it revitalize? And so when you talk about where we came from, people need to know we had these things. And so it makes me go back to, so what is it that we want?
Right.
We want what everybody else wants.
Else
nothing different.
Right.
We don't want anything different. We want equal justice. We want equal access to loans and mortgages when we go to banks. We want access to equal housing. We want to be able to buy a house. Yeah. Let's just say it, buy a house.
The American
I don't want to
dream.
lease all the time.
Right.
I want equal access, to education, to health care, to clean water, all of those kinds of things. And that's what we talk about, safe neighborhoods. We want safe neighborhoods.
We do.
Those are the things that we're looking for. And I don't think that's such a strange thing to want.
Right, and it really, when you think about it, my grandparents came to Flint to work in the GM factories, and my dad grew up in that area, and I remember him driving me there, over in that area when I was young, and telling me about, how this is this area and that's that area.
I mean, because even when I drive down Industrial, I remember things that were there as a child. And it just, it makes you feel good because they're good memories, but you're like, where is the justice?
Right. And it's important for us to know what happened and how it happened and how it attributes to, what we're fighting for still.
And I guess I'm trying to figure out, why are we still fighting? Why is this a fight that's continued?
Right.
I mean, we hear a lot about it, and it's funny because something happens and we get a little bit.
You're right,
we get a little
right.
handout.
A moment.
And
there's a moment.
Right, there's a moment.
And everybody wants to pour money for the moment and, do things for the moment. And then the moment passes.
The moment passes.
And where does that leave us?
It was funny. I was talking to somebody and they said an incident will happen and we get the two P's. We get press and promise, and we get it for a short period of time.
A bleep of time.
And a bleep of time, and then things go back to normal. And and you hear a lot of people saying, well, you know what, you're going to make me think about something else. You hear people saying we want to get back to normal, and I understand that in some aspects, but there are some aspects I don't want to get back to normal
not.
because normal was not equal for us.
Exactly. And then you think about people say quotes like, well, people say things like, they throw us some breadcrumbs. I don't want the breadcrumbs. I want the equipment and the ingredients to be able to create my own bread.
Exactly.
And why is that so difficult? That's what we want. Again, people say, what do you want? We want what everyone has.
And you know what, it's funny because we named a lot of things. It was a list. And I think that's what's so important about money, because economic access and economic empowerment touches your life in so many areas. So somebody could tune in and we may be talking about investment. We may be talking about housing. We might be talking about education, because money has something to do with all of those things. I mean, you look at where we are today. Health.
Health is a huge
we're
one.
talking about coronavirus. And we're 40%. We're dying. 40% of the deaths are us, black people.
Right. And what was bad about that is, you're watching TV and they're talking about the death rate amongst black people. And then, they throw these little shots in, underlining conditions.
Right.
But how did we get the underlying conditions?
Right. It's
what
about
does that mean?
money. It's about money because it's having access to health care.
Absolutely.
And it's access to good health care.
Absolutely.
And it's having a good job.
Absolutely.
So you get that kind of health care, or you can afford to get that kind of health care. It's being able to go into a grocery store in your neighborhood. You should not have to drive around to be able to get fresh fruit and produce. It just shouldn't be. And so money is the underlying thing that ties that together when you look at coronavirus. I remember I told somebody when they were asking me about underlying conditions, I said, yeah, black. That's become the underlying condition. But we have those underlying conditions as a result of systemic racism, and not having economic access to economic empowerment. And job opportunities and educational opportunities and business opportunities and being able to get housing. But what were you going to say?
Well, and I'm going to take you back just a little bit. I remember having these conversations and you were thinking about how can we help people to be able to do things like fight obesity, because we know that even if I can get to the grocery store, if I can afford to buy $5 worth of food, I'm going to get what can feed my kids. So I'm going to get the ramen noodles and things, the 99-cent soda or pop, as opposed to fresh fruit and fresh vegetables and things like that. And so you started a Get Fit Flint campaign. I remember, had me jumping rope.
But we did things that we did as kids, where you didn't have to have a lot, because we had jump ropes and hula hoops, and we were playing 2 square and 4 square and dodgeball and all that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, but it goes back to what can we afford? What makes underlying conditions when we don't have access to resources, and we don't have, like you said, grocery stores in our own neighborhoods, banks that will lend us money to buy a house, to create wealth. And then what do we have? We end up with underlying conditions.
But well, I'll tell you what's funny to me is you were talking about banks and actually let's talk about black-owned banks. Do we have any of those? We can run a bank.
Absolutely.
We can run a bank, but it's funny. I can go to the bank and get some money if I need to get a car.
Mm-hmm. All kind of cars with stuff on them.
If I want to get a car, but if I want to get a house, if I want to get a loan to start a business, it's a whole different conversation. I got to have so much proof of all kind of stuff that I don't have.
And the some of these cars cost as much as the house.
But they'll give me money for a car because as soon as I get it off the lot, what happens?
It depreciates.
It depreciates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It depreciates. And so we've really got to be about our business.
Right.
And one of the things I want people to think about is, this isn't about age. Of course, we want to get our young people started early, but I think it's important for people to know at any age, at your age, at my age, at any age, there are things we can do in this area. And using our voice is one of them. Sometimes I get nervous because I think, let me see, how do I say this? How do I say this?
Just say it. We're talking about black money.
Because sometimes we'll get a crumb and everything is okay, and I don't want it to be taken the wrong way. You know what? It's funny because we've been celebrating Juneteenth. It's the rest of the world that has just figured out why is Juneteenth important.
That it's important, right?
Why is it important? And so now we've got that recognition, and now we have that holiday. It's just like now people do want to, on the streets, put Black Lives Matter. There's certain things, maybe somebody else will get a stamp, you never know. But how does that help me pay my bills?
Exactly.
How does that give me access to a better job?
Exactly.
How does that do that? And we get happy, and I'm not saying we shouldn't celebrate those things, because those are victories, but it's like they want to give us icing, and I want icing and the cake.
Exactly.
I want all of it.
Icing and the cake.
We deserve all of those things. And those are the things we have to think about. I was thinking about, we're going to have some people on here. Today, we wanted to come so we could talk to people about what it is this show is going to be about. But we're going to have guests because I think it's important that we hear from people that are investors.
Right.
That maybe run a bank, those kinds of things, that are small business and entrepreneurs, that are in the area of health, to talk us about health and how these health disparities are impacting us, and a host of things. I think that's really important, and those are some of the things that we'll be doing. I know. I know we'll be doing those. But we can't.
And not just local, right? When we celebrate our local heroes and people who are doing things on a local level,
the state and across the country.
Absolutely,
we need to hear from people. So I know we'll be doing that. But I don't want us to. They said, well, we gave you a holiday. What else do you want?
Right.
Why aren't you happy?
And we like the holiday.
Right.
We're happy that everybody else is caught on.
Right.
I love the Black Lives Matter.
It was already a holiday to us. I know it. Thank you, Black Lives Matter, because they have been so vocal in bringing attention. And so while this attention is here, let's talk about what else needs to happen.
Exactly.
What else needs to happen.
It's funny, and so social media. We use social media a lot, and I use Facebook a lot. And Facebook does this thing where it'll pop whatever you post today. You can see it in your memories a year from now, 7 years from now.
I've been getting those.
Yes. And years ago today, I made a post that says something about I love being me even when my country doesn't love me. And so these are things, and not just in our generation, in our parents' generation, in our parents' parents. Like, we've been talking about these things. So again, how do we go from this moment to forever? How do we make sure that the black dollar, because we're the biggest consumers in the world, we have the ability.
Made me think of something. Okay.
We have the ability to build wealth within our own community. So how do we do that? And so, like you said, we'll have experts come in and talk to us. And so, yes, we'll be getting a history lesson, and we'll be talking about what's going on right now. But we'll also be talking about how to build the wealth that we deserve.
Right. And you made me think about something when you were talking about how do you build wealth, because there are so many times that we will, go and stand in line for tennis shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that's what you like, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But one time, skip buying the tennis shoes and buy some stock in that company.
Yes.
Buy some stock in the company.
So then when you're standing in line, you're paying yourself.
Exactly. And when everybody else is standing in line, they're paying you too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a good time to do that.
It is.
This is a good time to do that. I mean, buy one share, buy 2 or 3 shares.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking, you can get some shares of different stock, whether we're talking about Nike, whether we're talking about some of the airline stock,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is you want to invest in, pretty cheap.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some from $11 to $30
Mm-hmm.
to 40 to 50 to on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do that, and it's like you can make some money while you're sleeping.
Yep.
Because somebody's buying some Nike.
Yep, online.
Somebody's buying some, exactly.
In the middle of the night.
And if you fly, they're going to
What's
figure
your
this out.
airline? Mm-hmm.
They are going to figure this
Mm-hmm.
out. And buy some stock. Mm-hmm. But we don't think about doing those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And, and so that's what I'm talking about. We really need to start thinking about that and pushing that. And you can do that whether you're, young and old.
Mm-hmm.
Young and old.
And supporting black business. Support black business.
You know what? And sometimes we're our own worst enemy on that, because we'll say, you know how we do.
You know how we are.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you want it done right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But support
Right.
us.
Right.
Support us.
But you don't say that about your own business.
Right.
So, and there are so many. I'm excited because I know that's one of the things that we'll be doing.
Yes.
I'm not going to spill any beans right now, but we have been looking at different black businesses and entrepreneurs and looking at some of their products.
And I know you're excited about it because you've been talking about,
I know, and I've been showing you some things
showing
too.
me things and
tasting things,
yeah. And look, and getting excited when finding out, hey, there's a black company that makes that does
exactly, that does this. And I was excited on a couple of those purchases that I made, because that's what they were. And you think about it sometimes, but we really need to be intentional.
Absolutely.
We need to be intentional.
Absolutely. If you're going to buy it, why not buy black? Right. Why not build wealth within our own community?
So, okay, wait a minute now. But okay, so when was it? Last week, what was going on? Wasn't it last week where we weren't supposed to shop?
Oh yeah, the blackout. That was last week.
That was
on the
week.
7th.
So and that's the problem. I mean, especially if you're in a city like Flint. It's not like we're Detroit or Atlanta or New York or one of those larger cities where, what if you had to go to the grocery store?
Right. And the thing about the blackout is, it was pre-planned. People were talking about it. But like you said, sometimes we're in situations where we couldn't get to the grocery store the day before.
So do we have
like this? So we don't have one. What do?
What about a gas station?
Well, I
what
found
if you had
one.
to get some gas?
I think I found one, but that was.
And that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
That's what we have to think about. I mean.
Yeah, and so how?
What about a bed and breakfast? Do we have one?
No, not in Flint, to my knowledge. I mean, and then the thing is, this is where the audience, where you guys can help us out, because if there are black-owned businesses in the area, please contact us. We have an email address. It's blackmoneymatters2@gmail.com. I mean, we would love to hear from people, because we were trying to find places, and we were talking
and that's what we were talking
other.
about is where can you go for certain things. And I think I do believe somebody's working on putting all of that information together so we have it. But I bet there will be a lot of gaps. There will be a lot of gaps.
I mean, and speaking for this community, and I think I can speak for this community because this is where I lived my entire life. It's my community.
Right.
Born and raised and lived and worked for always in this community. And there are a lot of gaps. I wouldn't have known a grocery store to go to.
Right.
Of course we have restaurants. I remember we were ordering food. We went to Woods and we were talking about different things. We know, we know King, we know Woods, but What happens if, you know, if like you said, you wanted to go to the bank, you wanted to go, you know, to the grocery store. You know, what do you do? What do you do? Why do we only have one gas station in a city that's predominantly black?
Right.
So what do you do?
Why do we have only one?
I don't know.
That's something should be done about some of these things.
And then you talked about the St. John area earlier, where there were multiple businesses, dry cleaners, places of entertainment, shoe shine shops, restaurants.
Right.
You know, and that was one area in the city.
Exactly.
So how did we go from one area in the city with multiple black businesses to an entire city where we have to find people?
It's like a checkerboard now. It's like a checkerboard. And sometimes you do wonder if that's done by design.
Right.
You know, it's bad, but it's true. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I agree. And I like,
am I cynical or what?
No, I agree. And I like that one of the things that we've been talking about and you've been really excited about is bringing black businesses here, so that number one, you know, it helps us to know who's out there, what people are doing. It helps encourage other people. I know I talked a lot about girls, right? And you have a granddaughter now.
I do.
So welcome to the Granny Club. And you said her name is Brooke.
You know what? Her name is Brooke Lynn McAfee.
Okay.
And I said when she was born, it was she's a month old. And I said, oh, her initials are BLM, and I'm going to call her Little Miss Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
I just thought, wow, look at that.
That's nice. Yeah. And you know, and of course, everybody who knows me knows I have multiple grandchildren, including.
I'll catch you one day.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, but
you say you got a good head start on me, Jamaica.
I have a really good head start. And including, you know, my granddaughters, and I have grandsons too, but I talk about girls a lot. You know, my nieces are always with me. And I talk about how girls are looking at us. And they are looking at us, you know, my Zai and my Skylar and Abby and my niece Mila and, you know, they and Jovi, they're looking at us as black women and as black business owners, and they talk, you know, we've had this conversation where you're surprised that they're looking.
Right.
So I think it's important for them to see, you know, entrepreneurship. It's important for them to see us own homes, and it's important for them to see us run the companies.
I was going to say, what are you going to say? Some Fortune 500
Fortune
companies
500
that we don't run?
Companies.
There had been 2 women. There had been 2. And right now there are 4. Since you brought that up, I wrote that down. There are 4 Fortune 500 CEOs. 4 black males. That's it. That's it.
And how is
there had been 2 women, and they're not in those positions anymore. But I mean, that's sad.
How is it that black people are the biggest consumers in the world, but are not running the companies?
Things that make you go,
Make you go,
as Arsenio Hall would say.
Right.
I mean, that's a problem, and I think that's why. That's really why we're here.
That is absolutely.
That's why we're here, because that's what we've talked about, is wanting access to those kinds of things, and even access. You know, when you look at education, I mean, it's funny how, you know, it's a show about black economics, but it touches, like we said, all of those areas of our life. It has an impact. It has an impact, and that's why it's so important that we get a grip on this.
Right, and when you say education, that, you know, that there is multifaceted, because really education, as far as our educational system and how we invest in our black children, and education as far as understanding money. You know, what's happening that in our black households, that we're teaching our kids about stocks and things like that. And so, you know, really bringing some some experts in to really teach
Right.
us about
Because it needs
money.
to be part of the dinner table conversation.
Absolutely.
It really does, and not like it's something foreign to us. It shouldn't be anything foreign to us. Those are the conversations that we need to just start having. And I think that's why I'm excited, because we've talked about we're going to go and visit some
Yes.
places, and we're going to do it the right way, and that kind of thing, especially when things open up, because I know that people have stories all over. They have stories all over. And I know we talked about even having some guests zoomed in so they can talk about whether it's investment, whether they're talking about healthcare disparities, so they can talk about how they started their business and what they did. And then,
the challenges that they may face.
We know they face some challenges. We know they face some challenges. And those, even when you look in the world of education, why do we only have 4 Fortune 500 black CEOs? And they had challenges, and what have they had to do to overcome and be in those positions? And what are the areas that we need to steer our young people in? I was thinking about this because I never thought I would have gone to so many conferences and different things around water and infrastructure, but there weren't many of us there. And there were times where I think I counted us on one hand. And those are career
including
paths.
yourself.
Including
Wow.
me. And those are good career paths that we don't know about, to even talk to our young people about. You might want to do this.
Right.
And it's sometimes it's access to information. Now, how come we don't have access to information?
Right.
And some of it is when you look at what's going. Okay, let's take Flint. This is our home. Let's take Flint. If you want to talk about access to information and getting information, as far as media outlets,
Right.
we have the Courier. We have the Courier,
Yep.
and we have WFLT.
Yep. So you have a city that's predominantly black, right? That should have multiple mainstream news sources. We have a couple.
We have slanted mainstream news sources.
And right. And how does that work? So how do you get information to people that's valuable information that they need,
right,
if they don't have?
And so, those people should be getting subscriptions. Do you get subscriptions for the Courier? What do? Do you donate to them? We need to be
telling people that you can donate
to
you
the
can
Courier.
pay for advertising,
Right,
which helps get the Courier distributed out.
Exactly.
You can and utilize the Facebook page,
Right,
the Flint Courier's Facebook page, the Flint Courier, the website address.
Right.
People need to know.
Right,
to
and we
get
need to
that
support.
out.
We need to support our media.
We
outlets.
absolutely do.
We really
absolutely do.
And I think those are the only two. I mean, that's why I make sure my subscription to Essence stays current, because we don't have a lot of media and information that's accurate information that we can trust.
And you know what I remember?
What?
Being a little girl, getting
Looking
my
at
mama's Jet
Ebony
magazine and Ebony,
Right.
and the women were so beautiful.
I mean, that was something, wasn't
yes,
it?
and you read about people and you're like, I can do that. Again, going
Right.
back to girls,
Right.
I can do
I
that,
can do
and we
that.
can do that. And now we have Essence, and it would seem like it's I won't say when I was born, but
I bet it was after me.
but from then to now, you would think we would have more,
Right.
but
Not
we have less. And why is that?
Why is that?
Why is our only, big channel BET? I love
Right,
BET.
I do too.
But why don't we have more? And why is it still? Why are we still having first? Why were you the first black woman mayor of Flint? Why are we still having first? And while we celebrate our first,
Right.
why are they still happening? Why do we have agencies and companies in our community and communities across this nation that still haven't had a first? And so what do we need to do? That's black money. That's empowerment, right? And I talk about so many girls that I know personally who are young and coming up, they like they want my career path. And while
right.
While I appreciate that, and it makes me feel good, it also saddens me because they want that career path because that's what they've seen.
Right.
Why aren't we seeing
more
black people working in these industries? So some of those water jobs that you talked about, you don't even have to go to college.
Right. And they're great jobs.
And they're great jobs.
You made me think about something, so it might seem like I've just left your topic, but I was thinking about when you were talking about history and what we had, and you think about we had the numbers.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm so happy you said talk about that.
I mean, we did. And
we had the numbers. People went. It was criminalized.
It was criminalized.
People went to jail.
Right. You were a
Black
terrible
men
person.
went to jail.
Right. Even though that's who we went and got. That's how do you get along?
The number
who
man.
was taking care of you.
Somebody passed away.
And now it's what?
Help.
Now it's the Lotto and Mega and
Keno
all
and midday and half day and
after
everything
it was
else.
taken from us and talked about and criminalized. Look at marijuana. Look at marijuana. We got all locked up for it.
People still sitting in jail.
Still sitting in jail for some marijuana. And now it's legal.
It's mainstream.
And we can't even afford to get the licenses now.
And even if we can afford it, some way, somehow, we're not getting it.
We're not going to get it.
It's not going to be us.
I mean, it's just, and those are the things we need to look at. We need to look at those because something's wrong with that picture. Something is very wrong with that picture. And so while we're in this time when we're talking about Black Lives Matter and Black Money Matters, we need to be, like I said, I know I said this earlier, but we need to be very intentional about our business.
We do.
And so that was, when you were talking, I said, let me write that down because I wanted to make sure we came back to that. Because once again, I mean, it was just like what you talked about Seneca. It was taken from us. It was just like when we talked about St. John Street, Black Wall Street.
And they just bombed Black Wall Street.
Right. And so, and now somebody else has all of those things.
Somebody else has all
things
of
that we started and got locked up for and got talked about for.
And displaced. And,
exactly.
And, all of those things. And so I know that for me, I'm really excited about bringing in people who can teach us how to make money grow while we sleep. You talked about stocks and things like that. And so you starting to hear like a lot of buzz about stocks, but you know what I hear a lot? Well, how do I invest? So we know that the opportunity is out there.
Right.
But no one has ever told us how to even get in the door.
Right.
And
now they've got it so easy where you can have an app on your phone and say, what am I going and look at some things.
But we need to talk. We need that information.
Talk about that.
That's the information that needs to be out there. You could talk about things that are happening now. So trillions and trillions of dollars.
Okay, I see. Stop, because I know where you're going. Go ahead.
Serious.
I know. And what we get 1,200
and trillions of dollars went out, right? For the virus happened and businesses shut down. And the government put these trillions of dollars out to help businesses and help people. We got $1,200, and all of us didn't get that.
I was going to say, some of us didn't get that.
So,
I know a lot of people that qualified and still didn't get the $1,200. Right. But then we get $1,200. Well, where'd the trillion go?
Who got it?
Tell me about not even a million.
Because some people got millions.
Exactly.
And we got 1,200. Some of us.
You're saying we got 1,200.
Some of us.
And it's gone now.
And we're supposed to be excited and they gave us, first of all,
you didn't give us anything.
So they didn't give us anything.
Exactly.
But
you didn't give us anything.
Even that money, like we're supposed to be so
you gave
excited.
me some of my money back. That's what you gave me.
That's what you did. And even that money, we're supposed to be so excited about that. But really and truly, disproportionately, Black people once again got the short end of the stick. Once again. And that's what keeps happening. And that is why we are talking about Black Money Matters. You and I could talk about a ton of things. You know what I mean? We could talk about a ton of different things. And we have talked about a ton of things over the course of time. However, we're talking about Black money because we always get shorted. And it's time out for it. We need to make sure that what we're doing needs to last. It needs to last.
Right.
Next year, the year after, the year, our granddaughters
Mm-hmm.
should
Exactly.
be able
I mean,
to.
and that's what happens is, you know, we'll get a grant for something on a certain side of town.
North End.
That's
I'll
right. Say it. And it's not that we don't appreciate it.
Right, because we do.
But it's gone in a year.
Right.
And how how has that?
What's the long-term
Right.
economic impact
Right.
for black
and
people?
that's what we need to be focused on. I
How
mean,
is our situation for the better?
Right.
We have all of these examples of our situation being for the worse.
Like I said, we get those. What did I say? Those two P's were press and promise.
Press and promise.
Press and promise. And the press will last for, you know, depending on what happens.
News cycle.
A news cycle. It might last a few weeks, month. And we get promised that this is going to change because everybody knows what the problems and the issues and the challenges are. I'm tired of talking about the issues and the challenges. It's time for some action. It was funny just this morning. Now, my husband always watches, and I can't remember the name of the sports show in the morning, but he was watching it, and the one commentator said, well, "What do you think about the news?" And he said, "What news?" He said that the Redskins are, you know, they said the Redskins are going to change their name. He said, "Well, that's old news now. That's all they keep saying is, you know, we're going to change the name." Okay, well, it'll be news when they change
When
it.
they actually do it.
Right.
Right.
We want to see the action. We keep hearing that part. Let's see it happen. And it was just so funny when the commentator said, you know, they keep telling us that. We already know that. Tell us what it is now. And that's the part we're waiting for. It's like, okay, we know what the issues are. We know what the challenges are. What are we going to do about it?
Right, right.
What are we going to do about it? And we need to talk about economic empowerment.
Right.
And, you know, we're always talking about
Because you know what? We've been talking about it since reparations that were supposed to happen that we still haven't seen. But we've been talking about
We've
it.
been talking about
and
it.
occasionally you'll hear about it again. We get all excited. We get $1,200. Get excited.
Dang.
But what is the
right, because like I said, the 1,200's gone.
Gone. Right. So what's really going to happen? What is going to, and you know,
I want to be able to go get a loan.
Right.
If I need a loan for a house.
A loan.
If I need a loan to start a business. I want the same opportunity that someone white has.
Absolutely.
I want the same opportunity.
You know what I remember? I remember being in college, right? And I had to take human biology. And I was struggling to be able to really grasp, you know, what was going on, because it was like foreign language for me. I hadn't heard of some of these things. And I remember the young lady sitting next to me, she was white, and she said, "Oh, this is a review from high school." And I was angry because the schools in my community didn't prepare me. And so that goes back to what you were saying earlier about education too. It did, and my cousins called me a nerd, so I was reading stuff. But
you said I was reading.
I wasn't prepared, and I struggled with what other kids who went to schools a few miles down the road were able to just get and run with.
And again, that was something we used to have in Flint. It was when I was a child. So don't you say that was a long time ago, Jamaica. I'm looking at your face. But Flint used to be had one of the best educational systems in the country. It was a model. But that got eroded. That got eroded as things changed. As things changed, and it hasn't come back. It hasn't come back, and I just believe it can.
It can.
I believe it can, and not just in Flint, because while we're from Flint and we're talking about things in Flint, this is wherever you go. This is wherever you go. You know, we can talk about some things that we grew up with that somebody else, well, in Detroit will say the same thing, somebody in Baltimore will say the same thing, someone in Atlanta, and all across the country, because we've had such similar experiences. But it's
which
time.
lets you know that it's not by chance.
Right.
We've all had the same experience in all of our communities, all of our neighborhoods.
Right.
It's not by chance. People can say what they want, you know, but it's not a Flint thing.
Right.
It's not a Detroit thing.
Right.
It's not a Michigan thing. It's not by chance. It's a black thing. It's a black thing. And I will say this, I will scream this until end of the end, we are the biggest consumers. Money is power.
Right.
Knowledge is power.
And that's why
money
it's
is
being
power.
kept from
And
us.
that's why the knowledge of how to use the money.
And that's why the table is slanted, and we're down here trying to come up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we are going to create.
We're going to talk about this stuff. We're going to talk
create
about
an
this.
environment where
wait.
people get the knowledge to use the money and create wealth in our community.
And I want to make sure the audience keeps this in mind, because one of the things we've talked about is we think we know what we're going to talk about, but we need people to call, or what'd you say, email. And I want you to give that email again, because we need people to email and give us topics and ideas and things they want to talk about.
And so the email address is blackmoneymatters2@gmail.com. So that's blackmoneymatters, all one word, all lowercase, the number 2@gmail.com. So email us, let us know what you want to see. You know, what topics around money and empowerment, and even health and those things
health,
that money
education,
impacts.
Exactly. It could be in the art, culture,
arts and culture,
all kind of things, because money goes everywhere. It goes all over.
Economic development.
Exactly.
Why don't we own the businesses in our neighborhood? Why don't we own the businesses in our neighborhood? Those are the things we need to talk about.
How come we don't have playgrounds in our neighborhood?
Those are the things we need to talk about.
Like I said, we want the same things everybody else wants.
Same thing everyone else wants. Right.
It's funny, because I remember saying some of the things we got as a result of the crisis are things that you should have had anyway.
We should have had.
You shouldn't have to go through what we went through to get some of those things.
Absolutely.
There are things that all children deserve. There are things that all communities need to be a thriving community. And when we all thrive, I mean, it's better.
We're better together.
It's right. It shouldn't be just this group of people has opportunity, has access. I mean, and this COVID-19 has really brought that to the forefront. Between COVID-19 and the criminal justice system, I mean, it's really brought it to the forefront. But I'm so tired of hearing that, we've got underlying conditions, because we know why. Racism is stressful.
Absolutely,
just say
it's stressful.
It's stressful.
Absolutely.
It's stressful to always have to wonder, did this happen to me? Because the first thing you say, they do this because I'm black. I mean, that shouldn't have to be at the back of our minds all the time.
Did I not get this job because I'm black?
Right.
Did I?
Or did they do this to me?
Or do they do this to me because I'm black?
Stressful. And that's what feeds underlying conditions. I don't have a grocery store, so I have to go to this little store here, this convenience store, and buy what they have. So no, I don't get all those fruits and vegetables.
So I got an apple drink instead of an apple juice.
Exactly. So and then you wonder why I got high blood pressure. You wonder why my cholesterol is high. You wonder why. What's wrong? They got their diabetes under control. Why don't you?
And let me ask you a question.
What?
You have a black son.
I do.
I have black sons.
Yep.
What happens to your blood pressure when your son called you and tell you he pulled over by the police?
Look, I remember one time, and you know what? This was maybe two or 3 weeks before Trayvon Martin, and my son was going out. He's like, "Oh, I'm going jogging," and he was dressed in these sweats and this hoodie, and I said, "Wow!" I said, "Doug," I said, "You might need to change." And he said, "Why? Why should I have to tell him to change clothes?"
Right.
I said,
why should that be a
thought? I said, if anything has happened, they're going to pull you over. They're going to stop you. And I remember, and this is what got me. This was from a young black person told me when I said I had that conversation with my son. He said, "You're helping to perpetuate the myth of racism." I said, "I want my 17-year-old son to come home."
Exactly.
And then 2 weeks later, Trayvon Martin happened. And I remember I saw him, and I just looked at him. And it was interesting, because then you saw people, and some people are sincere, so I don't want it to seem that I think everybody that does this isn't sincere, but you saw certain people walking around with hoodies because they were, taking up for Trayvon. Yeah, you can take it off, And or you can keep it on, and nothing's going to happen to you. You know, nobody's going to stop you. They're not going to pull you over. They're not going to throw you down on the ground. But then you can take it off and go into your own community, and nothing happens.
Yep.
Nothing happens. And so we just, this is a conversation.
It is.
That's going to continue.
It is.
It's going to continue because we're going to be doing this every week.
Every week. We're going to do this every week. We want you to tune in every week as we bring our experts, as we
bring local people,
as we address things that you told us that you wanted to see on the show. We're going to do it every week. We're going to talk about neighborhoods. Why are our neighborhoods, you know, burned out and don't look nice? And if I want to go for a jog,
if you go in a different neighborhood to do it, they're going to look at you.
Right.
They're going to call somebody.
Right.
They're going to grab their bag. Right. Right.
But, you know, I just want to be able to live in an environment and in a neighborhood, and I want my family and my kids to live in neighborhoods that are safe and beautiful. You know, that matters.
That matters.
Right. And people have access to home ownership, you know, when they want to, and they're thriving businesses. And, you know, after you get done jogging, you can run in there and greet an apple and not some apple candy.
You said some
apple candy because we don't have, you know, the same
That's
access.
my apple.
Right. And so we're going to talk about that. What do I do if I decide that I want to build the grocery store or I want to start the bank?
Well, somebody's talking about a grocery store. You know, somebody's talking about that.
Yeah.
And has been talking about it. And
and to be able to highlight people who are talking about that and who are trying to bring businesses to the community, and to teach us, you know, we need people to tell, what paperwork do I need to file when I want to start a business?
Right.
What do I need to do? Why am I locked out of the loans? Why did all this money for these loans for small businesses come? Why didn't, you know, a lot of the small businesses that we know get the money?
Exactly.
So
I know one.
They got the money?
I know one.
See? And as a business owner yourself, who know other business
and it wasn't
owners.
Me. It wasn't anybody in my family.
You should know many. Because when you're a business owner, you know other business owners. You know, it's just what you just kind of, you know, we're accustomed to knowing people who are doing the same types of things as us because all we have had is the barter system.
Exactly.
So we're accustomed to knowing people.
That's right.
And so it shouldn't be one. It should be the vast majority.
Well, it's just like you said. On blackout, we couldn't figure out, okay, where are we going to go do certain things? You know, what if you said, we're going to do this for 2 days or 3 days? That would be real problematic on some things, right?
Some of us wouldn't be able to function. We'd have to buy ramens because we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able. Where are you going to go and get something fresh? Those things that you have to, you know, go back, you know, in a week or a few days and get more. What are you going to do?
I don't know.
You know,
and it's bad that we're having this conversation.
It is.
Really.
It is.
It's really bad, but it's good.
It's bad, but it's good.
Right.
It's bad that we have to have this conversation.
But we have to.
But we have to. And it's good that we are because we need to. We need to.
And we do. We need to sound the trumpet. We need to sound the horn, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we're going to be talking about here on Black Money Matters. So I'm looking forward to getting a list from people and hearing what it is, because I know we can't think of everything.
We can't.
But there's a lot out there.
And there is. And you know.
When I got on the internet, I started looking some things up. I'm still trying not to say what it is, but
don't hold it till we, you know, highlight those businesses. I can't wait either.
Stop talking. Stop. Don't say it. Don't say
it yet. I know.
But I okay.
But you're right. You're right.
I was so excited.
What, you know,
on what I found, what I discovered.
I mean, we're black people. We're the most, you know, creative people in the world. So of course,
and
we're able to do
created.
Things. Yes.
How's that?
Yes. But the thing is, so we're so creative. You know, making sure that other creative people are able to get those funds that they need to be able to create businesses, to be able to get that information that they need to be able to legitimize their businesses. Because, you know, it's a lot of businesses going on out there. What do people need to do to be able to legitimize their businesses so that they can have access to things like tax breaks and things like that, and so that they can have their paperwork in order for, you know, so that when they walk into that black-owned bank and apply for that loan, they can have all of their paperwork in order. And so those are some of that grassroots stuff. We'll have people coming in to talk about that, and we'll have people that's coming in to talk about, you know, like you said, investing and health.
And I think we need to talk about the media as well, and having access, and having our stories told appropriately and in a way that makes sense, and making sure we're supporting those outlets that we do have. I think that's really important.
It is. It's
really
important.
Really important
Extremely
to be able to get information, because you said there were just some things you didn't even know about.
No.
And where do you go read about it?
How is it? And you've heard me say it many times, I'm all about my community and this and that. How is it that I didn't know that history of St. John? You know, of course I knew some of it. I knew what my dad told me. But that deep history of what, you know, what happened and what we had and what happened to those businesses, and why aren't we seeing, you know, generation of the kids now running the businesses and things like that? Like, what happened to those businesses? And so that's what I would love to see. You know what I would love?
What?
For someone who ran those businesses, or maybe their parents ran those businesses.
I was going to say, because some of them wouldn't even be around. You know, because I think if I'm thinking about my dad working at Pabst drugstore.
Or their parents ran those businesses to come and talk.
I know, and I'm going to talk to my sister-in-law too, because Rex's grandparents had a cleaners on Industrial called Frenchie's Cleaners.
And you know what? I want to go to a black cleaners right now. Where are we going to go?
It's when you go wash your clothes and
at home.
That's where it is.
At my house. Jamaica's Cleaners. Because, I mean, but why don't we have those things?
Those kinds of things.
So that would be...
I don't know.
That would be good.
And that is what we need to talk about.
We do.
We need to talk about that. And it's also going to be a way, I think, for us to connect people together. Because that's important.
It is.
Is having that kind of support system.
It is.
So, you know, when you're trying to do certain things, because you get down sometimes, you're like, well, this didn't work out the way. Who do I have to go and talk with that understands this? Who can we talk with?
And I almost laughed because I almost spilled the tea.
Don't do it.
So one of your products that we're going to talk about is something that I love that type of product. And just knowing, you know, that was encouraging to me to see something that nice that black people made.
Thank you.
And to be able to do that. And so, yeah, you're right, to be able to get that encouragement and get that. And I want to talk to you.
About what?
You're a black business owner.
Oh.
You're a black business owner.
We'll talk.
You know.
You mean like here?
Yes, and get your story and
it was an interesting story.
And your business.
I never would have seen it coming.
And your business, you know, you're still in business.
Yeah, I never would have seen it coming.
I was using one of your products the other day at home.
Okay.
My granddaughter walked in. She said, "It smells so good in here," and it was the pink sugar body butter.
Pink sugar.
And it, you know, it smells good. And she, you know, so I have to keep it away from her because she'll have it and she'll be.
Well, we will. We will. Yeah, that was something, I don't know. But you never know.
You never know.
And sometimes, you know, we count ourselves out and say, well, you know, I can't do that. Or, you know, I should be doing this. And sometimes we put up barriers for ourselves.
We do. We think we can't do it.
Or like me, I remember I said, I wonder if I'm too old to be trying to do this, you know, because this is what I went to school for, and this is what I've been doing for 20-something years. How do I do this over here? And sometimes we put up our own barriers, especially as women. Especially as women. But I'm excited about some of the people that we're going to have. We're not going to tell anybody today, any of our guests, right?
But no, we're not going to tell our guests, but stay tuned because we're excited and we're sure you'll be excited too.
You're sure, huh?
I'm
You're sure? Okay, so
wow.
you know what? Well, we're sure you'll be excited.
Yes, yes, yes.
I am, and so we're going to wind it up. We're out of we're out of time.
We
We're at
are.
the end of the show.
We are.
But tune in next week for more of what?
Black Money Matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.